Hello again, folks. So, as part of the AliExpress 1111 sale, I wanted to do a review on this another watch that I bought during that sale, Cronos model number L6033. For those who don't know, this is the homage of the Black Bay, the Tudor Black Bay 54. It is a very nice. It's not like Christopher Walken there. It is a very nice. It is a very nice homage of the Tudor Black Bay 54. I paid 170, something like 170, around 170, 175, including shipping, no tax, of course. Or tax was included, no shipping. And I think the fee for the tariff to the United States was incorporated into the price. You can't, obviously they cover the tariff and you can't opt out of it. Of course, why would you want to? Because then you're going to get a nasty tariff bill sent in the mail. So tariff included to the United States, which I appreciate because I hadn't ordered from AliExpress until the 1111 sale, where I did the reviews of those two Cronos Explorer homages, which I really like. For those who are seeing my video for the first time, I get into all these all watches, not just genuine. I used to not be a homage, a big homage fan. Let me make sure I'm putting it right because I'm behind my phone here. I used to never be in the homage end of watch collecting, but I'm starting to appreciate them more for, their very inexpensive price to get in compared to the real deal. And I kind of view it as a try before you buy type deal. I mean, there are some that have already bought like the genuine Black Bay 54 or the Rolex Explorer 36 millimeter, and just out of curiosity, maybe as just to see how close the accuracy is, or maybe just to have a banger to wear around to not worry about getting stolen off their wrist or mugged or robbed for, depending on where they live. Or just, if they're out in the garden, they're not have to worry about it getting, dirty and nicked up or scratched up. They'll have, a backup watch and keep the real deal safe until they go out like on special events or whatever they decide to use them. Well, the nice thing about the Tudor Black Bay 54 is it's almost half the price, I'd say, of the many of the Rolex models, but it's still up there in price. I mean, the prices keep going up just like anything else. At least in America, the price, they probably incorporated with the tariff. I'm not sure if it's universal pricing, but the last I checked was around $4,100. When it was originally introduced, I think it was like $3750. So it's going up just like all these watches. And I think that's why a partial contributor into why the watch hobby is kind of dropping off is because, people are trying to make ends meet nowadays. And buying genuine watches is not the same game it was 20 years ago when I was in it more heavily. And it was, there were just like websites like Rolex forums that you can go on and research this stuff. But there wasn't the huge social media exposure on YouTube you have now, where you have people taking apart taking apart the watch movements and servicing them. You didn't really see a lot of that until the last maybe several years. So it's a new game, and now it's probably getting into a slump, I would say, because of, people are with inflation, they're just trying to make ends meet because everything's went up in cost so much. I mean, they might not have the surplus income to go out and do the hobby or buy expensive watches. People are having to trim down their collection. Even on the used market, these things are expensive, the genuine real deals. So that's where homages might come in handy. They might be availability also is the other I forgot to mention. If you really wanted, like going back to the Explorer review I just did, the homage the Cronos did, if you're really wanting a 36 millimeter, the newest version of the Rolex 36 millimeter, and you can't find it, well, some may buy that just to try it and make sure they want to buy it and just wear it on the wrist until one becomes available. You can't help but notice the quality, especially with the brand called, this brand called Cronos. For what they are, they're definitely well built. Their polishing is excellent. And now getting to this one, now this is version 2. They originally released a Black Bay 54 homage prior to this. Let's call that version 1, where it had a thicker case. It had a shinier, glossier insert. This version 2, it comes in a couple different options, but this is the one I chose because I didn't want they also sell that glossy insert one. In the same configuration, case configuration stuff. that the version 2 has, but it has a the inserts loomed in the the 10, 20, 30, which I didn't want because I wanted to, obviously when you're buying a Homage, some of us want the closest you can get to the real deal. In this case, the Black Bay 54. So I would say this is a very good Homage. Now I'm doing this from memory because the closest I came to having a Black Bay 54 in person was when I tried one on at the Tudor AD for maybe 10 minutes. I had it on my wrist, so I can only go by that in pictures. But this one is a very good, faithful homage to the genuine Rolex Explorer. Maybe, in my opinion, maybe a little bit more gold is popping here with this one. I can't really remember, but like the case thickness is pretty spot on. Obviously, it doesn't say Tudor. It's got a Cronos, the hourglass. Where this one's probably a little bit nicer in some areas, which I kind of wish they would do more for the Explorer Homage, is while I do like the raised, the actual emblem on the hourglass, the less intrusive the Cronos writing is, I think a lot of people appreciate that, where this kind of fades. Not that you'd want anybody to think you're wearing a Tudor. You kind of want to wear this, or Black Bay 54. You want to wear this with pride, saying, "Hey, this is a Cronos Homage," which in its own right is, obviously it's not the original design. They didn't go through any efforts of making their own design, which is what most people like me want. We want as close as we can get, without being an outright fake, without it saying Tudor with the shield, which those watches are available, but I don't own any of those. I kind of just dig the homages because obviously, I think I'm spitting on this. I don't know what the heck's going on. Must drink my coffee too fast. Let me take another cup. Maybe it'll bring the spit down, or maybe it'll make it worse. And it's cold. Yeah, well. So I think out of all the Black Bay 54 homages, I know I like this one the most. I think it's probably closer than many. Now, I like San Martin. San Martin looks like a really, like Cronos, they kind of pay attention to the details, and they're constantly evolving. Cronos is really, seems like they're really on top of listening to customer feedback. And I don't want to forget to mention, as some people have been looking, this has the newer updated PT5004. However, like the other watches I bought, the other two, it was listed as PT5000. So Cronos on their listings on the official store or on their own website are not going to any great efforts to relabel this as a PT5004. They might be doing that because with the old stock of the PT5000s, they don't want to, misrepresent. Right now it's kind of like potluck. If you get a PT5004, you consider yourself lucky. But I've seen reviews of people 6 months ago that have gotten many Cronos watches and got the PT5004. So it looks like it's pretty much replaced the 5000. And all it is that it looks like the PT5000 but without the go state. So let me unscrew this. The threading seems pretty smooth. It's got like the standard crown. I think it's like it's supposed to mimic the 5.3 millimeter or somewhere around there of the Tudor Black Bay 54 crown. So here's where like you would have a go state. You would have your first position as it comes right off the thread is your winding. Now like people freak out about what I just did because they say don't wind a PT 5000 or ETAs, but I've been winding ETA movements and even these clone movements on other watches for a long time and never had a problem. I have the advantage of having some watchmaking skills as I've done it as a hobby now. I'm not up to like some of the standards of other YouTubers who are doing, watch after watch, but I can, take apart a movement, oil and service it. And I have spare parts and stuff that I keep from things that have broken down for other reasons. So I'm not really worried about it, but I don't really want to go around opening a watch I just bought either. But just an occasional wind, if you're going to wind it manually, if you're going to venture into that, don't make big gaps between, the pauses. Just do it smooth. Maybe what's causing the teeth to shred on the PT5000 or other ETA clones, or I've not really seen it with ETAs, and I'm not even aware. I've never, like I said, had one break. So I'm just going by what people are reporting with this movement and other ETA clones. Is if you're doing it, don't do it with a lot of vigor and feel it, make sure if it's getting tight, stop, because I already feel that this one's been on my wrist for a while winding. And so the main spring is wound up. in the barrel and it's already tight. So if I keep trying to push it, I'm putting more tension on the little small teeth. So that could break it. And don't make like a little, like they call it like backlash. If you know anything about cars with ring gears, if there's a little slop in between the time you rotate it one way, you could just actually just keep rotating it, but don't quickly, hit it against with the little play. That could be causing it if it is a real true case. But but there's the first position, which is the wind. The second is the set. There is no middle position as you would see on the PT5000 where it was that set bridge, that 445 part number I talk about, which I still have yet to post because I got to look it up I keep all this stuff in a reference. I keep it on a spreadsheet. That the part, it's kind of a hard part to find, but you can modify it on a PT5000 or a ETA. It stems from the 2801 manual wind, as I said before in my other review. That one was both a manual wind and a non-date movement, the genuine ETA 2801, and it went into watches that didn't have, those attributes of having, a date, calendar date, and didn't have an automatic movement. So you can if you can find that part, you can also buy them off. There's a few other ones, but I'm not going to get into that because you can actually modify what you got. If you have a jeweler's loop and a mini file, like a diamond file, you can file that middle indent on that set bridge and modify yourself without spending 15 or $20 or $25 after shipping for just one little minuscule ETA part that you may or may not be able to find. So that's why I think ETA or Cronos is very active in trying to maintain a higher standard, which I really appreciate. I think everybody appreciates. But the case thickness is pretty close from what I can recall and seeing the pictures. The bezel action is good, very good. It's not loose, it's not tight, it turns. I can't say that it's got the exact same spring mechanism as most of the newer Rolexes and Tudors have, like holes in the actual case, and it's got like a spring and a little round ball on the top where it's kind of putting pressure to the spring. This could have, and I'm not sure exactly what it has, this could have the old-fashioned, just the ring, the ring that goes around with the paws that stick up and go against the backside of the bezel with the the indents. So that I'm not sure on. It doesn't feel like it, but I wouldn't know for sure until I open it up. So but it works fine. It feels fine. Where this one's different from the actual model it's homaging is the Tudor Black Bay 54 doesn't have side deployment buttons, which this one does, but it does have if you look at it, it has a glide lock system that is very nice, similar to the T-Fit on the Black Bay 54. And you have to kind of push it in a little bit, but it's nice because my wrist changes throughout the day, so I can, and let me give you a wrist shot here on my 8-inch wrist. Now I have it all the way out, and if you look at it, it's got a lot of play. But there it is, the 37 millimeter, and it is 37 millimeters because I did use my plastic calipers, not to mar it. I bought a set of plastic cheapy calipers that seem to be accurate because I have a pair of Mediterranean ones from my machining days that I, double check it, and it's pretty accurate. So it is about 37 millimeters, and it does wear very nice. 37 millimeters for a small watch is probably the sweet spot for me. Let me give you a further way. But where I like this one is because, not that you're trying to fool anybody, but the gold writing of the Cronos is sometimes hard to see, unlike that embossed thing that sticks out. I kind of wish they would just do all writing with the, just painting, painting not applied with that hourglass logo on all the Chronoses. I think this works out really good. Let me wipe it off. I think I got my greasy fingers smudged on it. Do the hand lotion because you get the dry hands here in Illinois with the heat running. I got to fix my humidifier because now it's like 35% humidity in the house. I'm waiting for the nosebleed to come around. But anyways, just to keep my fingers out of my nose would help too. Anyways, not to gross you out, let's get back on topic. So yeah, it's a really, really nice homage. It has the Fox rivet bracelet with the screws on the end. You can see the backside of the screws. But I'm guessing now, like I said, I have a big wrist. I have an 8-inch wrist. I've actually measured it. So if you have like a 6.5-inch wrist, you may have to take out one of the links, even with the kind of the similar T-Fit glide lock system they have here, because all the way in, I think all the way back tight, all the way, I could still put it on, and it actually rotates a little bit if I move it. So, and like I said, I have probably an unusually big wrist. I'm sure there's guys out there who are bigger than 8-inch wrist, obviously, but 8-inch is pretty big, and I'm guessing, for somebody 6.5, you're going to have to take out at least one link, maybe two. What else can I say about this? Now, I'm going to do a video where I open the case back. Maybe I'll do it on this one, because all three watches I bought, the 36 and 39 millimeter Explorer homages from Cronos, and this one all had the PT5004. Now, the only way that I could get surprised is if I was thinking, what if I'm wrong? And I have to guess. And what if I'm wrong? What if their PT5004 is their Miyota 90S5 movement? But then again, I recall seeing that anytime you look at the range, if you want the Miyota movement, you have to pay a premium of like $20 or $30 more for that movement, because it's considered, it's a Japanese movement. It's considered a little bit more reliable, newer style movement. But then again, I don't really like it, because I think Miyota kind of dropped the ball when they designed that newer series, the higher beat series, off the 8 series, the 8215, which was a slower beat. The 9 series was supposed to be closer to an ETA clone. Not an ETA clone, but a more updated movement with the higher beat, 28.8. They should have made the winding system both directions, where it wound the watch in both directions, but they kept the one directional winding system from the 8 series, which means that if you hit it a certain way, you hear that rotor freewheel the opposite way, because it has no resistance. Where ETA movements, and they're clones, of course, if they're designed exactly off which it seems like everyone I ran across, all the parts are interchangeable. There may be one or two out there from China that's because there's so many companies that make ETA clones, but there may be one or two where a couple parts are not exact fit. I'm not aware of it yet, but I've read that some, what you read, you have to verify. And so far, a lot of the stuff I've read have not materialized, but only I would have to tell by, getting other movements. I'm not going to buy several movements just to test it out, but most of them are off the same plans. They machine it in China just the same way. And they're very good movements, because they pretty much build them as close. The finishing might not be as good, but what was I getting? I was talking, I forgot about it. Welcome to old age. But anyways, that the ETA, this PT5004 will be the movement without the calendar wheel, any of the parts that move that calendar wheel, and it should be without the middle indent that that ghost state that you felt from the 5000 and other movements. And like I said, I think I was talking about the Miyota is considered an upgrade, so of course they're charging more of a premium for that. Let me make sure I got it centered correctly. Get you a close up. Always doing this behind the camera, and I got this new tripod I bought off of Amazon, and it kind of blocks the middle of the screen off my phone. Polishing's nice. You got the chamfering. Very nice homage to the Black Bay 54. I wasn't really interested, as I wasn't in the first release of the 79220R. I didn't like that chunky case. The Black Bay 54 is probably the only Black Bay 54 or Black Bay I'd be interested in, because it does homage back. It does homage back to the 7922 from the 1950s, which, and I don't want to offend you because I'm a Tudor lover too, but that basically is a homage of the Explorer 5508. And actually 1953, I think it was, the Rolex Submariner, the non-crown, the first Submariners, which had no crown guards, like this, was the first, and a year later the 7922 from Tudor came out. Now the only difference, of course, has been historically up to probably the late 90s, is that they may have used the same cases. Many of the older pre-90s used the same crown and would have the same bracelet, but then they started branding their own Tudor parts with the later shield. But I think in the 50s, I want to say the 7922 Tudor sub, the only difference was, and it had those attributes, probably was the exact same case that ran at that time, ran off the same production in Switzerland, and the dial was probably, it's a brass dial painted, and it had the same indices painted on radium. Those generations were radium, highly more radioactive radium. They stopped using radium in about 1963 and instead used tritium, which was lower radiation exposure. But anyways, the dials were very similar, except the Tudor would have had a rose, and eventually they started using. I can't remember on the 7922 if they had the smiley face or not. I think that was later models, but the movement was obviously the big thing, and that was, I think, the first 50s generation. The 7922 had a fluer, like FLUER, I believe is the spelling, 390 FEF they used to call it, and that one had some issues, I think, with the. I think the winding system wasn't as robust. It wasn't as robust as the Angler movements from Rolex, which Rolex movements were really at that time still never really truly in-house. They were still, I think Angler made them at the time, and then before the 50s they used other movements from other manufacturers, but I don't think really to call, Angler was kind of a company that sat outside that did supply movements to Rolex. I think it was exclusively, though I'm not sure on that, the 1520 movements, the 1530, which everything's based off of in the early years when these were made. And that one, I think the first, and I'm getting into probably stuff people don't care about, the first 1953 5508 had a 1020 movement, I think, an Angler 1020. But anyways, that's just some of the history of what this Homage is, but I make no bones about it. The Black Bay 54 to me will always be a homage of the Rolex Explorer. Tudor is, after 2012 when they came back to the U.S., has tried to make a statement that they're getting away from their parent company Rolex, but there's still a lot of the DNA is still there. They're basically, the Black Bay 54 is basically homaging the 1950s Tudor Submariner subs and the Rolex subs. So it's still part of the DNA. But for the money, I don't think you can get a better, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, a better Homage. You get the updated PT5004, hopefully, which I'm pretty certain you'll get. But it probably depends on what they have in stock, depending on select. Like I said, I got this off the Cronos watch store, the official Cronos watch store, which I believe I seen that somebody said there was two of them on AliExpress, and they couldn't understand why there was two, but maybe it's just the way they do their marketing, more exposure. But it was the official Cronos watch store, and it was during the sale. And the sale comes back and forth, but still, even at $200, I would easily pay $200. It was just more. I was into the sale, like many you get caught up in a sale. It's like, oh, I wanted this watch. I'm interested in this and this, and you buy them because of the sale. So I ordered all three at the same time, basically within a week. But I will do a case back opening video. Like I said, maybe I'll do it on this watch, as they all were listed PT5004, and we'll get a glimpse into. I mean, if it's based off the 5000, it's going to look, it's just going to be a grayish plated. I don't even know if that's rhodium, because they're all brass and they're plated. They're either plated gold, or these are like the silverish color. And I don't think we're going to see much that's going to surprise me. The only way I could, I'd have to take the movement out and separate, pull the hands, and then remove the dial to see, what mechanism parts they left on, which I'm guessing from nobody's really taken one apart, so I guess we don't know, but I'm assuming they have all the, date related parts off as they move to changing that set bridge to the 2 position. So I don't think there's any more I can show you. There's other reviews that are better than mine, but I just want to talk about the details if anybody gets into the history. But, this one pretty much satisfies. Like I said, the action's pretty nice. It's not loose. It's not overly tight. It turns pretty easily. So, got it lined up? Yeah. Like I said, the only thing that it seems a little bit more goldish tone on the rail, on the outside rail track, the outside ring, and with the gold here. I can't, it obviously doesn't look spot on exact to a Black Bay 54, which is Cronos writing. You could see some of the differences. I think the indices are a little bit more patinaed yellow or cream colored on this one, which some people haven't liked. The PIP is a little bit different than obviously the Black Bay 54, so it's not 100%. But as far as case thickness, to me, from my eye, from the one I remember trying on, that's almost spot on. Like I said, the first version was thicker. They released a statement that they listened to customer feedback, and that's why I like Cronos, because not only do they make a banging quality watch, they're actively pursuing ways to improve it. They don't take. It's like I think a lot of people have the same sentiment. Most people wanted the Tudor Ranger was available first, I think, at a 40 millimeter, and that's kind of considered a poor man's, I don't know how you'd word it, a lesser expensive version of the Rolex Explorer. And it's got more of the 1016 vintage, like from the older Explorers, where it wasn't the, white gold indices. They were painted on the dial, which I think is reminiscent of the older vintage. But people are attracted to that because they want the vintage one, but they wanted the 36 millimeter for the longest time. Okay. Unlike this one, where a lot of people weren't even looking for the Black Bay 5437, and they were pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised when I first seen it, because I'm more into vintage Rolex. I'm not really into the new ones. But I think I know, so within the last couple of weeks, they just released the 36 millimeter, and I'm spitting every time what the hell's going on? They released the 36 millimeter version, which people have been crying out for years, because they went from a 40, which looked a little off, and they did a 39 millimeter Ranger, and then they just released the 36. Well, you say, well, what is it, desperation because the watch, people are buying less watches? They finally did it. It seems like it takes Tudor a long time to listen to customer feedback, where Cronos jumps right on it. Many were complaining about the first 79220s, the 7922R in 2012, the first Black Bay release being too chunky. For every review I've ever seen from the moment that got released, that was the first complaint everybody did. Tudor pretty much, I think at one point they were saying it was the movement, and I knew for a fact that's not true, because here's an ETA. Those first ones had an ETA 284-2, and that's a very thin movement, and that finds its way into very thin watches. It was just their design language. For some reason, somebody within Tudor thought it was nice to have a very chunky case. Well, when you're homaging a 1950s watch, which the Black Bay was doing from the start with that first Burgundy release. I think my apologies, I keep moving it down. I'm not looking at the camera because this bar's blocking it, but that really was a put off. I tried twice to buy one of those. The first time it came out, and I put it on my wrist, and I kind of tilted my wrist, and looked at it from the angle where I'd always see it, and it was just too fat. It was too tall. I didn't like it. I like a thinner watch, and that's just my preference. So it took forever. Then they finally built the Black Bay 58, which I think was trying to address some of the people's complaints. So they still had the 41 with the chunky case, which they had updated to version 2 with the shield. And then they dropped, of course, that gorgeous rose that was reminiscent of the old, I guess you can't have everything, right? But there's somebody there that's just refusing to listen to customer feedback of what they want. Well, now all of a sudden they just popped in a 36 millimeter, Ranger, which everybody was begging for, because that's very reminiscent of the older 1016 Rolex Explorer. Now, I would never buy a Ranger, even a 36 millimeter, which I'm assuming that size is hot right now. You probably can't even find it, or it's a little bit harder to find, and I'll bet you can find a 39 millimeter version easily, because everybody's swayed their attention like any new watch release. But, the watch market's been kind of depressed. Sales have been dropping, prices and the economy, their price increases, tariffs in the U.S. So what does Tudor do? They finally get off their, and give customers what they want. So to me, it feels like they're very slow. They hear the feedback, and they still keep building the designs they want, not what the public wants. The Black Bay 58 was still a little bit thick, in my opinion, so they came out with this to shut people like me up, which there seem to be a lot of them, but of course, it may not have appealed to many people because it was in a smaller size. I love it. This is my sweet spot. If I was going to buy any Tudor Black Bay new, I would buy the Black Bay 54, the 37 millimeter, even on my honking big wrist, because the still wears a little bit bigger than the 36 millimeter Explorer and that Cronos Homage, which is based off the Explorer. And that satisfies my want to have a little bit smaller of a watch, going back to the older days where men wore even 30 millimeter watches, which would be considered too small today for a woman to wear. But back then they were wearing 30, 32 millimeter watches, what they would consider boys' watches. Not even boys' watches today, because they ever push. But it seems like it's going backward, just like any kind of fad. I mean, there was a movement of people wanting larger sizes, and Rolex addressed that with the 39 millimeter Explorer 1, and a lot of their watches, like the Submariner, is only increased like 1 millimeter, but the first ceramic release. But you could tell they were trying to address it, but Tudor really seemed stubborn. It took them from 2012 with all the videos. Every video would chime in about it being too thick, the case being too fat. And then, I think it's when they started using the in-house movement on the second version, they cited the movement. It's like, well, I mean, you guys just build it off the ETA 2824. The brass plate that's on the main movement shouldn't be that thick where the case warrants where you have to have a fatter case. I know I'm just rambling on here, but you got a company like Cronos, a Chinese company, that says, hey, we understand what you want and we're going to get right on it. And within a year or two, less than a year, they built this one. They fixed it. They pretty much did what people wanted, getting closer to Black PT5004. So credit to them for listening to customers. And they probably heard customer complaints about the ghost date on their no date models, and they address that because they have several no date models that mimic Tudor models, the 36 millimeter Black Bay, and they're putting the non-ghost date one. And maybe it's they tried to address the weakness of the PT5000 winding mechanism. I don't know what they could do with that, because it's a similar design. Basically, people today are trying to say that the 2824s will break winding them. I've been winding them for 20, 30 years. I've never had one break on me. I don't know where the stuff comes from. It might have been one Chinese brand clone that had a run of gears that they machined from a different, maybe some flaws in the metal of the gear, the winding system, and they were snapping, and all of a sudden, they might have fixed that by changing the alloys or fixing the problem in the metal and the making of those parts, and now it's probably resolved. But once that starts, it starts its own, rumor mill, and it becomes fact almost with all ETAs, which I have not. If you've experienced it, go ahead and chime in. I'd like to hear. You've actually been winding your let's say a genuine ETA movement from T-Cell or something like that, which uses part of the Swatch family, and they use genuine ETA movements. Or even Solida's SW2000s. I've not experienced a problem with the winding, but I am careful to wind. Like I said, when you do wind, take a little bit of notice how you're winding. Don't just jerk back and forth, because there is play, and you could be, when you're coming back, a little bit of the backlash between the gap and the gears. Just keep pressure on it and just keep winding it. And when it feels like it's getting tighter, stop, because you don't need to go that far, because you got enough wind where then you throw it on your wrist, and then you go about your day and just doing this and drinking your coffee if you're left-handed or right-handed, or whatever you do, wiping your rear. I know, sorry, gross. Whatever you're doing throughout the day, you're going to wind your watch up, and that's what an automatic does. So you really shouldn't be having to wind it, but I understand not everybody has one of those rotating watch holders, which I don't even recommend. They might just throw it in their case in a rotation, and after a week, put it back on. So you can shake it or wind it gently a couple times and let your wrist do the rest, but don't crank on it. Just be mindful, and you won't have any problems of it breaking, because not everybody has the ability to go in there and fix that problem, or wants to. I don't want to even on a 160 new watch. I just want to throw it on my wrist and enjoy it. I'm not, even though that's part of my hobby, I don't really enjoy breaking down a watch I just bought just to repair something I could have avoided. So, including my rambling on, I think I covered everything. If you're still with me, solid end links. But yeah. Sorry, I'll do the case real quick and then I'll let you go, because I know I've been on this for a long time already. Geez, over 30 minutes. Same typical Cronos case with there's the PT5004 that's wrapped in on the head of the watch. Get the screwdriver and the Cronos marked watch tool, spring bar tool. You get the warranty card, which, you know, to me are pretty much useless because I'm not shipping my stuff back to China. But I think the only thing if you want to split hairs, I think where they stitched this band, and it is splitting hairs, is crooked because I think they stitched this end lower. So I want this box replaced because it's not straight. Yeah, they stitched that wrong because it's lower. Sending it back. Just kidding. No, don't care because that box will never be seen. Yeah, so if you're with me, I appreciate it. You've listened to my rambling, but that's excellent watch. Anything 200 or less, awesome buy. Look for coupons. AliExpress shipped to Illinois from China within less than 2 weeks. So A+ on everything. A+ to Cronos. I hope you keep kicking out. Thorn has a watch that I've been interested in. It's T023. It is what it looks like is a homage of the short run before they made the transition from the non-Crown Guard 50s first to Submariners to 1959 when they built the first Crown Guard Submariners. Those were for a short run, maybe a half a year. They ran what's called the square Crown Guards, and that Thorn T023 looks to be like a homage of that short run square Crown Guards where the edges are milled square, and then they eventually went to a pointed Crown Guard until 1963, and then after that they went with the more traditional rounded that we're familiar with, but mundane details only a watch fanatic like me gets into. But that Thorn is pretty promising, but they added this, again, OCD as watch genuine and homage owner. The first version of that had Submariner, but for some reason, maybe copyright, they took that out and put Frog Mantle on there, and I don't even know what the heck that means. All I can see is a frog sitting on a fireplace mantle, and there's a picture. There's a picture of somebody putting that on there, and that's exactly what popped into my head, and I'm like, that's a little bit weird. I don't even want to. I'll wait, because they talked about that some customers probably don't like this. So they're going to release a version 3 or maybe a different version with the frog mantle for those who want that on. And so I'm looking at that maybe as my next purchase because I do dig the homage of that short run. And most people probably won't know the history of it. They'll just buy it because and they have 3 different versions of that, which one is really, it has like a fox ghost patina with the vintaging. It looks really cool. But there's like 3 variations. There's one with the snowflake indices. There's one with just a black dial with the round indices, and there's one that's like a fox patina with a gray ghost insert, like it had faded in the sun. That one's the one that's piquing my interest. But if they could just drop that frog mantle and put Submariner back on, like the first version, I'd buy it in a heartbeat. I'd buy that one and the black one, or I'd buy even one without the frog. Just get rid of the frog mantle, please, Dorn. And I guess I'm in a small camp that doesn't like it. Some people think it's kind of cool, but to each his own. Okay, hopefully you got something out of this review, and if you like it, go buy your Cronos Homage Black Bay 54. Okay, thanks.